Well, thank you for joining me so early. You're on the West Coast, so I know it's a little bit earlier for you.
Yeah.
Hopefully you've got some coffee.
Well, I'm not a big coffee drinker, but I do have my tea. So
Oh, well, there you go. Perfect. Perfect. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on the show and joining me. And I know that you've been on a journey the past, probably a long time, but it's really started to kick in for you the past year and a half, couple of years. And so I know that you launched Career Path Global, and you're getting ready to launch a podcast. And I, I want to talk about all that. So,
yeah, absolutely.
and I'm big into heart-centered leadership, self-leadership, being authentic with yourself, and I know that that resonates with you and kind of your mission. So you want to talk a little bit about what you're doing and how that resonates with you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, everything that I talk about really predominantly is all about everything from the heart, right? And then, more specifically, authenticity. And I've always really been big into leadership. I have a ton of books on it. And one of my favorite, it's a little tiny book, but it's called You Don't Need a Title to Be a Leader. And because there's a big difference between a leader and a boss, right? And we all know that. We all know that a leader is someone that you gravitate towards, and a boss is somebody that you just have to listen to. And what's the big difference? If you can really think about what's the big difference between those two, one person, the leader, is generally very confident and grounded in themselves, right?
Yeah.
They're very authentic with themselves, and that includes like their downfalls, their weaknesses, I guess I should say, and they embrace that as a part of them, versus like a boss usually is just, somebody who has this power, has this position of authority, but either doesn't really feel like they should be there, or so you get these like insecurities kind of popping through, and then that's when you get some of that toxic workplace stuff. But yeah, I think it really all has to do with authenticity.
Yeah, I've always felt like a boss focuses on the metrics, right? I mean, whether it's a small business or a large corporation, you've got objectives that you have to meet, and that's all real. It's all important. But a leader has those things that they focus on, but it's really about creating the space for people to feel safe, feel encouraged, feel respected, and allow to grow, make decisions, stumble, get up, and still be supported.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, 100%. And I didn't want to I didn't want to run off on a tangent about specifically about leadership, because that's a subject I really enjoy. But the big thing is that authenticity, because most leaders have done a lot of self-work.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm all about with the people that I work with. I do two different things that kind of blend together. If someone wants, I do just the resume, like the resume and cover letter, that's it, right? Mm-hmm. But even in just doing that, I work a little bit with people in the finite amount of time that we have, saying, what do you really want to do? Because I need to know so I can point them in the right direction, not only on their resume, but in their headspace. But when I do my coaching program, that's what I tell everybody up front. I'm like, look, this is going to be really heavy, touchy-feely, because this is all the internal work that we're doing right now, right? This is like, how are you going to know where you're going if you don't actually know yourself and don't actually know what you want? How are you going to translate to a recruiter, onto your resume, in your networking, right? And I think that's true for everything. If you don't really take the time to understand yourself and really do that introspective work and get to your own authenticity, how are you going to know? And I mean, that's not easy. That's not easy. I know, you know, that's not easy. It's not
Yeah.
easy to ask.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Really self-discovery. I think you said it, or I read it somewhere, that what do you want to be when you grow up, right? What feeds your soul? What are you passionate about? And it's really kind of starting with some simple, things, and then you talk about creating a path, and that it's a journey.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, 100%, 100%. It's definitely a journey. And so, and that's kind of what I do, right? Is I help people through that journey. I did all the spinning around in circles and going down the wrong paths. And then I took a lot of time in 2019. Anybody who's talked to me has probably heard this story, but this is when I said, okay, universe, this is what I want. I want to, really get to my true self in, personally and professionally. And I was like, I don't know where to start, but I started with trying to accomplish one of my bucket list items, which was to become a published author. So I wrote an entire fantasy fiction over the course of 2019. Like, I really dug into that. Let's not talk about how difficult editing is. This book may come out in the next 5 years, I'm not sure. But anyway, and then in that process, I was like, I'm thinking, like, what do I want to do? What am I interested in? And so I was like, well, I really like medicine. I've come out of that field. Heck, my maiden name was Doctor, so it was like predestined. Anyway, so I used to work in there, all of this. I'm like, well, I'd like to get back into that. And so then I decided, well, with my time constraints, my family and everything like that, I'd go to school, become a physician assistant. And I was like, yep, that's what I'm going to do. Okay. So I applied for a PA school. I applied to colleges to refresh my sciences. I was applying to different jobs in the medical field, so I could be in my field of study. I was telling my coworkers and my family, this is what I'm going to do. And so I was all set on that path. And then I don't know when or where it happened, but I had this epiphany that the thing I really wanted deep down inside was to own my own time. And I don't know why I didn't see it earlier, because it's been in my history of things that I've been trying to do. I've been trying to accomplish that goal for a while, but to finally mentally admit that to myself, right?
Yeah.
That was a big thing. And it also showed me that how my interest did not align with what I call my soul need. I realized if I was going to become a PA, really, really wasn't going to own much of my own time,
Yeah.
So,
It takes work, right? No matter what we do, you talked about kind of going down that medical profession, career path, and maybe it's about helping people, because I think that what you do today is really about helping people. And it's a matter of, where you spend your time, right? Time is like currency.
100%. Yeah.
It doesn't really matter how much money you make. Everybody has the same amount of time. And so it's so important. And it's very cool that you came to that conclusion and recognized that for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're so right about time. Which I try to convey to people is that it's the only non-renewable resource, right? Money is renewable. It kind of comes and goes in our life, but time is the only thing that you can't get back. And I think a lot of people are starting to realize that, right? They're starting to realize that they need to feel fulfilled in their life. And there's so many people that are going, hey, money is like the fourth or fifth thing on my list that's important to me right now, that most people are really looking to get to that, kind of that soul need, like I keep talking about, right?
Yep.
So yeah, it's super important to be authentic with yourself, whether you're trying to make a career shift, whether, whatever you're doing. And, like I said, it's not easy. That's why I do the coaching that I do, to help people, ask the right questions, go in the right direction, so that, they don't have to like get lost in the corn maze, kind of like I did, so.
Yeah. So you talked about resume, and then that obviously leads to interviewing. What's really, really important for people to have, just if you were to give a tip on when they're putting their resume together? Because it's easy to, I look at a lot of resumes as hiring people in the industry that I work in, and there's nothing, you can make a resume look however you want, but what's really important for people to go through when they're putting that resume together?
Honestly, and I don't want this to sound like a cop-out answer, but it's really important for people to understand their own value. More than anything, when I'm doing a resume, that's what I give people. And that's super important, because you can, having been a recruiter, a hiring manager myself, who sat there and looked at hundreds of resumes, I am 100% confident in the resumes that I build for people, because I know exactly what the recruiter is looking for, and, for the most part, what the ATS is looking for. But because you talk to anyone, there's a million different ways people will tell you to do a resume. It's one thing that everybody seems to be an expert in, when very few people have actually been on the other side, like you or me, and have like looked at resumes. And that's what I was with staffing company, and that's what I did, all day, because we were filling tons of positions, and so I was looking at 50 plus resumes a day. So but I don't want to derail from your question. So understanding your own value, again, it all circles back around.
Yeah.
Like this isn't even scripted here, this is just the truth. Like, it all circles back around to that authenticity, and once you have that, and once you feel comfortable in yourself, then you'll start to believe in yourself a little bit more. But so many people don't have a direction when they're building their resume. And I understand that it's hard when you're living that life, and you're really like, oh, I need a job. What do I put on here that's going to get me hired? Oh, maybe it's this, or maybe this is too much, or, do I look good enough? And your confidence is kind of waning. And so for that, 100% would be value. For the general resume, your skills section. I always harp on this. I tell everyone this, your skills section, put that up at the top. Make it, short and sweet, but make sure that your hiring manager has some real evidence of what you've done. Telling me project manager does not help me with anything. Tell me that you've managed a $3 million project that needs completion in 30 days. That tells me something, that gives me metrics. So
Yeah, being specific,
yes.
Being intentional. I always like to say that, when you're communicating with people, setting expectations and understanding the expectations, right? So unless you're specific, then it's so broad that it doesn't connect.
Right.
Yeah. Very, very important. Absolutely. Yeah. So I've heard you say that careers are like dating. Where's that come from?
Oh my gosh. Well, like I said, I used to work in staffing. And so, I was just all day, every day immersed in the recruiting HR process, right? And so we did it from beginning to end, from, the job posting to helping people as they were in their job with any HR problems, things like that. And I said it over and over, and I said it to my coworkers. I said, I'm going to write a book about this one day. And so that's actually what I'm working on. That's my professional book, is Why Employment is Like Dating and Why You Should Care. And it's so true, because we are building that relationship. It's all relationships. It's people centered, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to say hide behind the professional, because we do need to have it in the workplace. But still, from beginning to end, look at I liken people submitting their resumes, kind of like Tinder, right? I've never used Tinder myself because I was married before that even came out, but from my understanding, you look at somebody's profile and you decide whether you want to keep them or not, and that's kind of how it goes right now. And in the automated process, you get all these resumes and you're like, no, oh yes, and then you set up the blind date, and so that's going to be the interview or the first phone call, right? And so the whole process is so similar to dating in the macro and in the micro. And then you have, when you get hired, you have that honeymoon phase, right? Everybody's like, this is great, everything's great, and then that starts to wear off, and you start having that little issues and fights, and whether you are able to get through it or not, then that's your continued marriage or your inevitable divorce, so.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think that leads back to what you said earlier about being authentic, on your resume, and that leads into the interview, right? I always encourage people to when they come in for an interview with our company, to interview us, because if we're obviously, the hiring manager is obviously looking for somebody that's going to be a good fit for the organization, right? That's what we're doing. We're trying to find somebody to bring into the organization that's going to be a good fit. But if the person coming in, they should interview the employer, because it needs to be a good fit for them as well. Because if it's not a good fit, like you're saying, after that honeymoon phase, they're going to realize, this isn't really for me. Right. And then you have to start that process all over again.
Right. Right. Well, and 100%. So I tell, when I do interview preps, I always tell people, make sure you ask questions as well, because you're interviewing them as well. And that's such a big mindset shift for people, because it gives them that sense of control. And I think that's really important. This is a whole nother topic, but I think that's really important for employees. And to some degree, I think we're seeing that with the Great Resignation, is employees having some control over their workspace, their emotional, not just a physical, but their emotional and well-being workspace, right? And instead of it being, well, oh my God, I'm so lucky to have a job. I'll take whatever you pay me. I'll do whatever you say. I'll just cower in the corner over here, which it sounds dramatic, but that's essentially how it's been. It's, you do what I tell you to do. You don't ask questions. You come in, do your job, and you leave. And we've been having it for a while. It's just coming out in bulk these past couple of years, that people are going, no, like, I'm happy to work for you, but I want to work more with you, and I want to provide value, because at the end of the day, that's again what people want to provide value. That's kind of where it circles back around. Imagine if you were in a relationship with a significant other and they constantly made you feel like undervalued or like you weren't good enough. And I mean, you may stay for a while or longer than you should, but that's just, it's not a healthy place to be. It's not healthy in a relationship. It's not healthy in the workspace. So that's kind of the micro that I was talking about, why employment is like dating as well. It's that those micro emotions versus like the whole macro process.
Yeah, I really, really like that comparison between relationships and your next career. We talked about self-love, self-leadership, and that's what it's, self-care. And that's really what it is. You have to have, you can't love somebody else wholeheartedly unless you love yourself, right? Unless you have self-care. It's the same thing when you go into a career, knowing your authentic self, taking care of yourself. It's making sure your cup is filled up, because you cannot pour from an empty cup. And you want to be able to pour into your next employment, adding that value, like you mentioned, knowing your value, filling yourself up, and then it makes for a really, really great partnership with your new employer.
Right, exactly. And I think, I always use this example. One of these days, after I've used this example a billion times, I expect someone to send this to me in the mail. But when you get on a plane and you open that front pocket, there's always a pamphlet for emergency procedures, right? And I flew a lot when I was a kid, and that was before the dawn of the TVs in the back of it. So I always ruffled through the stuff in the front of the seat, and I always looked at the emergency pamphlet. And one of the things that always stood out to me as a kid was they always showed that if there was any kind of cabin depressurization, that the mask would pop down, and then the adult should secure their mask before securing the child's mask. And I was like, what is this? Why do they hate children? Shouldn't children be first for the future of the world?
Yeah. Yep.
And then as I got older, obviously I realized it's all about like the adult is going to be the more capable one. So they have to make sure they're taken care of first before they can help anybody else. And I use this example not only to show people like you do need to take care of yourself, but because like you said, I do like to help people. Absolutely. And I find that if I ask people what they really want to do, like if money was no object, what they really want to do is they want to help in some shape or form. If they want to help animals or if they want to help people, but we all want to help in some capacity. But you cannot help if you are not taken care of. And that's not being selfish. That's self-care, like you talk about, and that bleeds over into every part of our lives. And if we are in a workspace where we don't feel like we can either provide ourselves the self-care or our work doesn't care about us, then that's going to bleed over into other aspects of your life. And like you said, you can't pour from an empty cup. So it's okay to put your mask on first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wonder, as people are looking at new careers after consulting with you, maybe they discover that where they're at is a good fit. They just haven't been communicating very well.
Right.
Like explaining to their employer what their intentions are. And I think sometimes it's like a couples therapy, right? You go through couples therapy, and then at the end you either determine maybe this is a good fit, we were just on a different page, or maybe it's not a good fit and it's time to move on.
Right. Well, and that's part of the process, is really determining what is the issue. And it very well could be you like the industry you're in, but maybe your work environment is not good. Like you can't
Yeah.
just, again, like relationships, you cannot force the other person to make changes they don't want to make. And that gets much harder in a work environment situation, because again, you do have those delineated hierarchies, unlike in a relationship where it's supposed to be equal. So, you know, most people I work with, honestly, it's because they did what they were supposed to do, or you know what they were told they were supposed to do. I call it like living in the box. We from a young age had parameters set up for us. This is how it's supposed to go. And we say, you know, you're supposed to go to school, get your education, secure your long-term job, find your spouse, get married, get the house, have the kids, work for the next 30-40 years, and then retire and maybe have some time to travel and then die. You know, like that was the plan. That was the plan that was laid out for so many of us. And, you know, like good children, we grew up and we went off and we did that plan. And then we got into these jobs where it's like, okay, I've towed the line. I've done this for 15 plus years, but I don't find any sense of fulfillment, you know, and that's happening so much, predominantly actually to the Gen Xers, who were kind of caught in between. You know, you have some of like the millennials, particularly the younger millennials, that are pushing the boundaries, and technology has really allowed for that, right? Like, I know some of the older generation have a hard time understanding, like, anybody who wants to do YouTube for a career. Like, oh my God, that's not a career. Okay, but that YouTuber is making like $3 million a year, you know, where this job over here pays 40K a year. So, you know, like, I mean, what is wrong with enjoying and having fun with what you do? What is wrong with going outside of this box that's been set up for us? Nothing, absolutely nothing is wrong with it, other than we've been trained, our brains have been trained to think that way. So yeah, I mean, for the most part, I think the people that I talk to, it's a fulfillment issue. You know, they're really in the wrong space, because a lot of them do like their coworkers and whatnot. It's just that, you know, I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. It goes. I think what I heard you say is that it's this mindset that we've grown up with, that we've been programmed with. And so not only is it shifting your mindset and thinking differently, but it's also working, you know, putting energy into your heart work, right? It's, you know, self-discovery, finding what it is that brings you value and meaning to you. And it's so important. You know, I talk a lot about heart-centered leadership, and that's really, I think, you know, 2020 has really shifted, and I know we're into 2021 now, and so, you know, here it is, you know, 2020 2.0, right? And so people are shifting into their heart work, because that's what brings us value in our careers, and it brings us joy and happiness, because we can show up and we can do a good job. But at the end of the day, it's really about that time that you touched on at the beginning of our
yeah.
conversation. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it all circles back to that. Everything circles back to doing that hard work, you know, looking inward. It's funny, I tell people, like, I know you're busy. I get it. I have 2 small children. Like, finding time alone is really hard. Like, I literally go meditate in the closet. Like, I mean, the cat doesn't like it because that's his home. So I'm like always got like scratching, but I put in earbuds. I give myself a half hour
Yeah.
to just kind of like detox from everything. Because honestly, when you're doing that hard work, you cannot use the logic in your brain, right?
Yeah.
You have to just kind of be still. Don't force yourself to come up with the answer. You know, again, that's why I always tell my clients, it's like, I'm giving you 3 weeks to go through this in our 8-week course, but there's a good chance you may not have the answer in 3 weeks, right? Like, it took me it took me, and I still discovering stuff about myself, but it took me like 2 years of doing, some solid work to finally get to my own answers and my understanding. But yeah, at the end of the day, yeah, Jason, it circles all around back to that being heart-centered, that self-care in whatever your endeavor is, right? We have to start feeling okay to be our authentic self, no matter how like weird and quirky that might be, just I always get really worried about saying this because it's like, okay, within reason, like live and let live, right? Like don't go out and do anything heinous or anything like that. It's not what I'm saying, I'm saying just be like, we spend so much time hiding and tamping ourselves down. Do you ever watch any Disney shorts, or have you seen any Disney shorts?
No, not really.
Okay. Well, you should, and for your audience as well, take a moment and go on YouTube and Google inner workings. I think it is absolutely brilliant because it talks about the pull between the brain and the heart, and our brain, our logic tamps down what our heart wants so much that we end up forgetting, and we become like a shell of ourselves. And to me, it's an extremely powerful Disney short. So I encourage you to take a look at that.
Absolutely.
I know I've used it in my content before, so.
Absolutely. So speaking of content, you are going to be launching a podcast in 2022.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Cheeky Career Chick.
Yep, it's behind me.
Yep. Yeah, so let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, so I'm super excited about that. I'm going to be bringing on a former coworker of mine that was in the same space. She's going to be co-hosting with me, and we're really going to be talking about, everything that's really related to careers and relationships. That's kind of our tagline, is talking a little bit about careers, talking a little bit about relationships, and about how careers and relationships, intertwine. So that I'm super excited. I actually have some really amazing guests lined up. I don't want to say anything yet until we get official dates, so I won't say a name, but I've got a CEO of a Fortune 500 company coming on. So I was stoked about that. Just some amazing individuals. But yeah, so that's really kind of similar to the conversation that we're having right now. Is kind of the stuff we're going to be delving into, from anywhere from the resume aspect of it. And let's be honest, that's an extremely dry topic. So we probably won't spend too much time talking about it. We'll keep that segment short and sweet. Yep. But all the way to how do you balance your career, your work life, all of that, because that's extremely important right now. Mindset, all of that, all of it. Your career is an amazing part of your life. It's such a major part of your life as well. And I don't think that we give enough attention to it as far as making sure that it's something that's a good fit. So we're going to be talking about all those different topics coming up in January. So super excited about that. Be building the website, but you'll be able to find us at cheekycareerchick.com. So
very cool. Very cool. Looking forward to it. And so as we start to wrap up here, I usually like to end with a couple of things. First, what if you had one piece of advice for anybody that, and maybe it's a common thing that you touch on with the people that come and hire you, consult with you, what would that advice be?
Oh man, there's so many. As soon as you started asking that question, my brain's going, okay, which one? which affirmation, which quote, what do I use here? God, it honestly, it all comes down to like value and self-confidence, right?
Yeah.
I say a lot when I work with my clients, because I try to drill in that concept of self-value. It is something I think so many of us have lost in the workplace in one form or another, whether it's because we've taken jobs out of desperation, whether it's because we've never had a job that ever paid us what we were worth. So we've started believing that we're only worth like 40 or 50K a year. You know, we just sort of adapt to that, whether it's because we're in a work environment that has an abusive tendency. You know, you get groomed into believing that that's okay, again, much like in a relationship. So again, doing that heart work, that self-care, and finding your value, that's the value in people like myself who do that type of coaching. And you know, why I call myself a career inspirer is because I help you on that front end, right?
Yeah.
That is so critical. It does not matter what changes you make to your career now, to your resume. If you are not understanding your own value, then nothing else is going to fall into place. You know, and I'll be honest, even in my own business, it took some time to understand my own value. We can very much get beaten down by our work environment. So I mean, that's not as super tangible as, like, you know, focus on the skills section in your resume, but that is 100% integral to everything that you're doing in your career.
Yeah, and exactly what you said. It's the intangibles, right? It's the time, the self-care, the time with yourself, focusing, whether it's meditation, breathing, just being with yourself. And when you do that, it opens up kind of a direct path between your mind and your heart. And then your clarity starts to set in. And it takes work. It takes work to do. It's not easy, but it's putting that work in on the front instead of on the back end. Yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah, no, it's not easy at all. It takes time. When I finally like what I call leveled up and actually felt my own value, because it's one thing for people to tell you, you know, and it's even something different for you to be like, your brain to go, oh, I'm valuable. But if you don't feel that in your whole body, then you're not going to actually believe it, and you will stay with the same tendencies that you have now. You'll continue to pick bad employers or jobs that don't meet your value. And I say all this because I've been through that process. That's the thing. All of this comes from experience. I tell my clients I've definitely been to the lowest lows. So I get it. So yes, value is 100% a game changer. It also takes time to get there.
Yeah. And then my final question is, what does it mean to you, the phrase own your space, Nicole?
Well, I think that we touched on it a little bit. I think I touched on it a little bit when I was talking about, you know, not just owning your physical space, but owning your emotional space. And again, right, how all of this connects so well, Jason, right? You know, that plays into the how employment is like dating, or employment's like relationships, because it is. And we have a strong tendency, especially in the work environment, because people are holding our entire livelihood over our heads. We tend to let people break some of our boundaries that we maybe normally wouldn't in a relationship. We let people, you know, walk on us in different ways we maybe wouldn't normally. And so to me, owning your own space is everything that we've been talking about here is really just finding your value. I hate to keep saying that, but it's so true. Like finding, because if you don't value yourself, why would anyone else value you? You have to stand up for yourself. There's literally nobody else who's going to do it except you. You are going to have people that will help you along the way. And the more driven you are to finding your own value and standing up for yourself, the more you will find people will get on board. And I mean, not everybody's going to support it, but you will find the people you need will come into your life. But to me, that is 100% what it means to own your own space. You know, is that doing that inner work, finding your value, finding your authenticity, and then being able to make sure that you are steadfast with those boundaries in any capacity.
Powerful stuff, Nicole Rand. Powerful stuff. Thank you so much for being my guest today. And I look forward to seeing your podcast grow, your business grow, and we'll connect.
Thank you so much, Jason. It's been a blast. Hope we can do it again sometime.
Absolutely. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too. Bye.